Yes, indeedy, folks. It's the beer drinker's guide to the Great Wahoo. It's time to drive Steens Mountain. Good old Oregon. It's known for the Willamette Valley and the coast. But out here on the eastern side of Oregon, there's a big hole that I always thought was just filled with desert. Lordy, was I ever wrong about that. There's some great country just waiting for a little 1 or 2 or 3 day drive right in our back door. A good excuse to go adventuring in this country is driving to the top of Steens Mountain. The Steens Mountains are the ones that you see off to the west as you drive from Winnemucca to Jordan Valley. Getting to the top of Steens Mountain itself can be rather difficult because of snow. For that reason, I decided to go in July of the year 2008. We'll go exploring the very tippy top of Steens Mountain during our adventures, and from there we'll go south, looking around the deserts south of that area, and over to Alturas, California, back through the deserts of northern Nevada, and then the deserts on the east side of the Steens Mountain. On our first very short episode of Driving Steens, we took Highway 20 from Ontario to Gentura. Gentura is the home of the Oasis Cafe, an informal place where they advise you to seat yourself. From Gentura, we headed out on the dirt road that follows the Malheur River. It was a great drive, and we ended up in the lovely town of Crane, Oregon. From Crane, we headed south to New Princeton, and from there, we went off on the little roads that head to the Diamond Loop. It's wide open country, we're off on a dirt road, and about the only inhabitants we see have 4 legs. Just as we approached the turnoff to the Diamond Loop itself, we saw off in the distance the Peter French round barn. Here we see the barn from just about where we're going to turn on to the loop. Remember that all the materials in the barn had to be carried across all this land. In 1872, Peter French was 23 years old. He worked for a California cattle baron named Glenn. On Glenn's instructions, French brought 1,200 head of cattle, 20 horses, several supply wagons, a half-dozen cowhands, and a cook up into eastern Oregon. Over the next several years, French built a cattle operation that included 200,000 acres of land. It also required thousands of head of horses and mules to run the operation. Every year, about 300 head of horses and mules were born. Some of these were sold, but most were kept for operating the ranch. Winters were harsh in this country, and French had problems because he was trying to train the colts, get them broken, and at the same time make a positive work environment for his cowboys. French designed and eventually built 3 of these round barns. This is the only one that survives. These barns were definitely ahead of their time. By building them round, he made sure that the young horses and mules did not have square corners to cut them off while they were exercising. Built about 1880, this barn is 100 feet in diameter. It has a 60-foot stone corral in the center of it, and it has a paddock for exercising the horses in the winter that is 20 feet wide and that circles the entire structure. On the east side, away from prevailing winds, the barn was designed with the exterior wall of the paddock to be open to the elements. This feature offered easy access, as well as providing abundant air. The draw on the downwind side brought in lots of air without forcing cold air directly onto the many horses that were kept in these barns. The inner corral is made of 250 tons of stones that had to be carried 8 miles on horse-drawn wagons. The stones are quarried lava, and the wall is 9 feet tall. The heavy wooden gates are of mortise and tenon construction. The intricate craftsmanship and the very simple design make them so that they still work as well today as they did when they were built in 1880. The roof is covered with 50,000 shakes made of western red cedar. To support this roof, the structure needed long, strong timbers. Similar timbers have been found in a very deep canyon a long way across the plain from this barn. It is speculated that these massive juniper timbers were carried to the barn from this canyon. There are 28 posts supporting the very outer perimeter of the barn. Another 17 much more massive posts surround inside the corral, and in the center is one very large 30-foot long cedar post. This center post supports the roof with an umbrella-like structure that is simply a delight to behold. As I observed in our last episode of Driving Steens, I have been in many cathedrals, and there have been a few that literally just lift your spirit up off the ground. Walking into this corral portion of this amazing structure, I had that same sense of the spirit of construction and wanting to make the world work for the betterment of what we do. This amazing round barn truly is something that you want to go check out. It is an uplifting experience. Peter French built a successful empire, and along the way, got a lot of homesteaders and Indians upset. He had an interesting life, and we'll look more into that at a later time. For now, let us only say that he was killed in a land dispute in December of 1897, some 25 years after bringing his 1,200 head of cattle and 20 horses into eastern Oregon. This barn is the only one remaining of the 3 round barns that French built. The barn and 2 acres of land were given to the state of Oregon in 1969 by Thomas and Richard Jenkins, who are now ranching this land. I cannot stress enough how much I thoroughly enjoyed discovering this very unique feature of Eastern Oregon history and of human effort. It was truly one of the highlights on our journey of driving Steens. Of Wahoo, you and the Great Wahoo. By way of introduction to Pooh, you, and the Great Wahoo, let's take a little look at the rivers that are running underneath our feet. One of the most obvious of these rivers, of course, are our storm drains. Because of rooftops and pavements, it's gotten to where whenever we have a storm, there is a lot of extra water that cannot soak into the ground as it traditionally has. For this reason, we need drains to take the water away. In the city of Boise, there are over 700 miles of pipes laid under the ground to take these rivers of water and whisk them away. 700 miles of pipes is the same distance as if we drove the windy roads between Boise and Cheyenne, Wyoming. In some communities, drain water from the streets is scrubbed through a sewer treatment plant. However, in Boise, storm water is put into pipes that go directly to the river. That's why we don't want to have chemicals from our lawns or oil from our car getting into the street and being washed down the storm drains. Besides storm drains, there are another series of rivers that run under our feet that used to run over the land until we decided we wanted to build houses. These rivers run quite abundantly in the springtime and don't run much at all in the summer. They are the creeks that come out of the foothills to the north of the city and drain under our feet down to the river. Mostly they follow the old creek beds, and we have merely put them into pipes, buried the pipes, and built our houses and our businesses on top of them. This is where the creek that comes down Hall's Gulch goes into a pipe to be put under the city. Cottonwood Creek, Sand Creek, Dry Creek, and every other creek that comes out of the hills is put into pipes and flows underneath our feet. Like the storm drains, this water is piped directly to the Boise River. This is where the stream from Hall's Gulch is released from the pipes into the river. So it is that our storm drains and the creeks that come out of the mountains go directly to our beautiful Boise River. There is another very active and well-distributed river underneath our feet, and that is what makes it so that whenever we turn a little knob in our kitchen, we get this. Pressurized water delivered directly to our homes is one of the miracles of modern living. The first water system in Boise was founded in 1890. A pipe was brought from Hall's Gulch down to the Overland Hotel, and anyone who was along the length of the pipe could have a faucet that they could get water out of for $3 a month. The charge was specific to the number of faucets you had. So, of course, most people got along with one just nicely, thank you. Today, United Water of Idaho serves Boise and several of the other communities in the valley, not counting the pipes that go to individual homes. United Water of Idaho has 1,163 miles of mains under our feet. These mains are between 2 and 30 inches in diameter. This river of fresh water running under our feet, if stretched out in one line, would go from Boise to Tucson, Arizona. So we have at least 3 rivers running under our feet. There's the potable water that United Water of Idaho brings. There is the street runoff that goes into storm drains. And there is the mountain runoff that is taken from where it comes out of the mountain and put into the river. Ah, but there is one other great river that runs under our feet. And we have this great river under our feet because everywhere that we have this, we also have one of these. Drains, of course, come in many different shapes and sizes. These drains are the very smallest beginning part of a tributary that grows in size and grows again. There are several rivers like this that begin at drains and grow under our feet as they drain toward the Boise River. Eventually, these streams become so large that they need 72-inch pipes to carry them. We, of course, are talking about the river under our feet that is called the Boise City Sewer System. The river called the Boise City Sewer System has over 680 miles of pipes running this river beneath our feet. Stretched end to end, the Boise City Sewer System would reach from Boise to Seattle. By 1950, the urban area of Boise included 56,000 people. Some few of these still used outhouses. Many had septic tanks. Most were connected to a sewer system. Just like our storm drains, this sewer system dumped the sewage directly into the Boise River. In 1950, the Boise River was the second most polluted river in the state of Idaho. In 1950, the Boise City Public Works opened the Lander Street Sewage Treatment Facility. Since then, the Lander Street facility has grown and has continued to serve the needs of the people on the north side of the Boise River. Today, the green belt meanders along on the south side of the Lander Street Sewage Treatment Plant, between the treatment plant and the river. By the 1970s, the city had grown to where the Lander Street plant was not adequate. The city was also filling in on the south side of the river. So the Public Works Department built the West Boise Sewage Treatment Facility. Today, this plant serves pretty well everything south of the Boise River as well as Eagle. The original plant, built in 1976, included great basins where the water would sit on the earth, water would seep out into the ground, and solids would be collected after they had dried. In 2001, there was a major upgrade to the West Boise facility. It literally tripled in size. Today, all of the sewage at West Boise is treated within 24 hours, and the settling basins are no longer in use. Today, 5 large 72-inch mains come into this facility. One main is from Cloverdale Road, and, as anyone who lives out there knows, has just been upgraded with great consternation to drivers. Another main comes from the Bench area, 2 come from Eagle, and 1 from the Garden City area. Both the West Boise Sewage Treatment Plant and the Lander Street facility also accept dumps from RVs. These are charged per gallon. These dumps might get a few gallons a month. Needless to say, they are not most of what comes in to the 2 Boise City sewer plants. On average, every day, day after day, 7 days a week, 365 days a year, the 2 Boise City sewer plants receive between 24 and 30 million gallons of sewage every day. Basically, that's enough water to fill the Boise State football field as deep as an 8-story building. Now that's quite a bit of water. The total capacity of the plants is 40 million gallons per day. The excess at one plant or the other can be sent to the other plant just in case one is running full. Of the average 24 to 30 million gallons that the city sewer system receives every day, the Lander Street plant gets about 10.5 million of those gallons, and the West Boise plant averages about 14 million gallons a day. On weekends, the load increases. West Boise will receive between 16 and 17 million gallons a day on the weekends, as opposed to 14 during the weekdays. There is, however, every year, one day when the city sewer treatment plants get inundated with the largest flow of the year. While the West Boise plant averages 14 million gallons a day, on this day it will pretty well every year bring in 24 million gallons on that one day. This day is what the staff at the West Boise plant like to call an unofficial American holiday. That day, as predictable as rain in April, is Super Bowl Sunday. As we have seen, the West Boise plant has 5 large 72-inch mains of water flowing into it. The Lander Street plant has 3. That makes a total of 8 large mains flowing into the sewer treatment plants to be treated before we dump the water back into the Boise River. These 8 large mains serve the needs of 250,000 people. That demand is supposed to double in the next 30 years. Those are the rivers beneath our feet. Next time, we'll take a look at what influent, or sewage, actually is, and over the next few weeks, we'll be looking at how we treat it so it is clean water when we put it back in the river. Poor Mary McGrady. You know, she did just love her husband with all her heart. They'd been childhood sweethearts, you know. She'd known him ever since the 1st grade, and she still loved the man dearly. But gosh darn it, he just was getting so lazy around the house. He wouldn't do anything. While she was washing windows and would suggest that he might mow the lawn, he'd sit there and moan and groan and scratch and talk about how, well, maybe we should look into getting a lawn mowing service. But in the meantime, he didn't mention getting a window washing service. Things just got worse and worse, and it was getting more and more on poor Mary McGrady's mind, not to mention on her nerves. Finally, she decided, before she runs out and gets thrown into getting a divorce or something because she's so upset, she'll go talk to a marriage counselor. Her friend had had some problems and gone to a counselor, so she got the guy's name and she went and sat down and started pouring her heart out. "I just don't know what to do," she told the counselor. "The man is driving me crazy. I don't know how to get him motivated. I don't know how to talk to him. He doesn't seem to respond to anything. How on earth do I keep him in line without becoming a nag about it? I just don't want to be a nag about it. It just bothers me that I would turn into somebody that was always nagging and picking, and I've never wanted to be somebody like that, but I just don't know what to do. I'm at the end of my rope." Well, the counselor listened, and he listened some more. And finally, when she was through pretty well telling him everything that she could think of, he leaned back in his chair and he thought a little bit, and he looks up at her and he says, "Well, I might have come across your problem. I think the problem might be that your husband isn't supposed to have to wait in line." And that's this week's Beer Drinker's Guide to the Great Wahoo. Thanks for watching. Hope to see you next week. And in the meantime, keep celebrating the Great Wahoo.